What is the biggest story in baseball today, do you think?
The biggest story in
Just as it
baseball
has been
today.
since Shohei Ohtani first put on a uniform of the LA Angels. He's the story, whatever you want to make of it from now till the trade deadline and from now till next season. What does the future hold? What would you do if you were the Angels? I don't know if there's an answer that makes any sense other than just try your best to sign him. But he's declared that he wants to win more than anything else, apart from making $500 million or whatever the total will be. And I don't know if he can win with the Angels because the Angels can't win with him. So, JP, what do you think the Ohtani story does from here? How does it develop, if at all?
Well, Dave, I think you're spot on that is the main story in baseball right now. Now that the last out of the All-Star game has been recorded, we have to wonder about Shohei's future. And I do believe that this is a months-long story. I don't believe that Shohei is going to sign with the Angels this month. I also don't believe that he is going to get traded to a team and then immediately sign an extension. This is a months-long process, one way or the other. I still believe that at the moment, the chances are better than 50-50 that he stays with the Angels for the balance of the year. He is too important to their brand. And the notion, Dave and John, that he could be chasing a 60 homer season. How would the Angels feel? Even, yes, you could get back some prospects and help your future. But if he hits home run number 60 wearing any other uniform besides the Angels, how will that look for the Angels in their long-term future? I just think that there are a lot of reasons to keep him. I realize that there are some reasons, compelling ones, to trade him and to get back a franchise-altering package of prospects, and that's all a very credible thing. But this is not just a player. This is an iconic athlete, one of the most extraordinary athletes in the history of sports around the world. And it is not just about, quote unquote, maximizing your asset when you've got a player who quite literally, with the signage on the outfield walls and every marketing and sponsorship and broadcast deal you have with Japan, he's a special player. And I just don't think there are enough good reasons to trade him right now.
What the Angels should do, if they could do, and I don't think they can do, is build themselves up between now and the end of the month and get into the playoffs and show that he can win by staying with the Angels. The reason I don't think they can do it is they don't have a prospect pool that they can empty and get quality players to put more wins in the column the rest of the year. I just don't think they can make that kind of trade, and I don't think he's tradable. As you say, I don't think anybody's going to rent him. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, and I don't think he's going to sign anywhere in a sign and trade. If he's going to be a free agent, he's going to be a free agent. So I think they're really in a bind, and I don't think it looks pretty no matter what happens for the Angels.
Yeah, I'm always a big picture guy when it comes to baseball. You guys can get into the minutia. Well, like, why haven't the Angels been able to put it together for as long as Mike Trout has been there? Let's face it. I mean, when you have, how many years have we said Mike Trout's the best player in baseball? Mike Trout's the best player in baseball. But, he can't do it by himself. And so the question becomes is what, if you look inside the front office, you look inside ownership, you look inside the franchise, why haven't the Angels been able to put it together, John?
Well, it's a great question, John. A couple of things stand out. Number one, over that decade, because Trout debuted in 11 and he made his permanent stay in the major leagues, that began back in 2012. So it's a decade plus now. Inconsistent pitching over that time. I think some failures to really build well from within, whether that is the scouting side, the development side. They've had a couple different iterations of how they've drafted players. They just have not been able to build a sustainable homegrown core to this point. I think they're closer now than they have been, But again, the underlying issue injury wise, Anthony Rendon, they paid him a bunch of money and he's been inconsistent. When he's been on and healthy, he's still been really good, but too many injuries for him. I think that the pitching staff has collectively been inconsistent, especially when you compare them with the standard bearers in their division, the Houston Astros, who have had a robust international scouting department, have developed their own starting pitchers like McCullers, Valdez, Javier, more recently Hunter Brown, JP France. They've got an entirely homegrown rotation right now, and their ability to do that, John, has just given them extraordinary stability in relation to what's been a very inconsistent pitching program with the Angels.
Well,
Your
we
thoughts,
should
Dave?
also mention that Mike Trout isn't hitting any home runs or singles or anything else now because he's hurt again. And that's, you know, when he's hurt, that's always the biggest injury problem, the biggest problem that the Angels have. On the subject of Ohtani, sort of, I want to ask if there will be more Ohtanis, or why haven't there been more Ohtanis yet? Because everybody aspires to do that if they think they can do that. And I think somebody is going to. In the recent draft, the San Francisco Giants drafted a guy named Bryce Eldridge, a prep hitter and pitcher from Virginia, who aspires to be the American Ohtani. JP, do you think that we're going to see somebody do what Ohtani does? Maybe not as well, but is that in the future, or is Shohei Ohtani a once and done forever?
I do think Shohei is a one of one in terms of the ability to do it at this level and for this many years. Dave, I go back, and it's part of the great book that Jeff Fletcher wrote about Shohei's ascent. And Jeff found a quote from Babe Ruth himself 100 years ago saying that effectively what Ohtani is doing now could not be done. And he was describing his own journey, the Bambino, and it's always kind of a treat to be able to quote Babe Ruth during the course of a podcast. But Babe, the Bambino said effectively what he had done with the Red Sox, which was be a pitcher who hit a bunch of home runs, was not sustainable. That basically one person could not do both things. And a century later, Shohei is proving him wrong. Now, I think this, Shohei, if you've had the pleasure to stand beside him or speak with him, he is a uniquely built athlete. When you look at his strides, when he runs the bases, he is just one of these superior athletes. If he was a basketball player, he would be a tremendous swingman. If he were a hockey player, he'd probably be one of the greatest defensemen ever because of his strides and his reach, all these different things. He is just a superior athlete. And there are just not many people who are built like Shohei. And so I do think that because of his athleticism, and I hope, Dave, that he does change the sport in that there are kids who believe they can do both. I'm a believer, and obviously I'm a parent of young kids. I want my kids to play as many sports as they possibly can, not because I think that any of them will have any sort of gift to go compete in the Olympics, but just because I think it's good for your balance and your athleticism. I think it's just good for your overall wellness and growth and development as a young person. And so I think that merely, Dave, having kids, boys and girls, believe they can do what Shohei is doing, or they at least want to try it, I think that is just empirically great for kids, whether it's within the sport of baseball or softball, or to say, hey, I want to be able to be the modern day Bo Jackson and do two sports. Great. I think that's just a great thing for kids, as opposed to the hyper focus on one sport. And as if I could tell a quick quick anecdote from my other favorite sport and your favorite sport, hockey. I spoke recently with Jacob Fowler, who was an early round pick of the Canadiens, a goaltender from Florida. And he basically said the best thing that he did as a kid, because he grew up in Melbourne and played his club hockey in Naples, he had to drive 3.5 hours to find his rink. He basically didn't have the ability to play hockey all the time. And guess what? the ability to play stuff besides hockey was great for his hockey. He had to be an all-around athlete. And so I think that what Shohei is doing is just great for kids. And if it inspires more players like Eldridge to want to do it at the highest levels, I think it's going to end up being a more athletic and more balanced, and I think a fresher sport, as opposed to the kids who feel like from age 11 or 12 on that they have to, because a coach somewhere says so, focus on one sport and one sport only.